something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others. Only on Real Revolution Radio.
Welcome everybody here to the Missing Link. Here today we have the honor of bringing Harry Vox, an investigative journalist who's very outspoken, who's not afraid to tell it like it is, the way he sees things are, and really excited to get the information that he has today. How are you today, Harry?
I'm okay. How are you doing? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. We saw you before about a year ago, yep. And now, that was the last time we had our conversation, and now we get to bring you back, onto our new show called The Missing Link. Maybe if you could tell anybody who doesn't know you just a little bit about you and, kind of like your journey to get to where we are here today.
Oh, my God. I always make this short and sweet. New Yorker, born and raised, musician, artist, painter, but also an investigative journalist, and I've been doing it for 30 years, mostly when there's a time of emergencies, such as the one we're in right now. Typically, I prefer to do other things than talk about Jewish banking dynasties all day long. That kind of is boring, but that's who's doing it. And so there's, a few of us that are calling it like it is, but it's a rare person that does that, because these people have jobs and careers, and they don't want them to be trashed by these banking dynasties that sit at the top of a very large structure, like an octopus of control, and they control your leader. I don't even have to know where you live or where you are. They control them. They control your media because they own it. They control the middle management because the middle management's thin grasp at their position in life depends on them not talking mean about it. So, yeah, that's a short and sweet one. There's a lot more to me than that, but for the purposes of a show about what's going on in the world, that should suffice for now.
And your heritage is then?
I'm born and raised in America. My mother's side's Germany, in Bavaria, pretty much all from Germany. And my father's side goes back to is very early in the America. So on my father's side, they go back to we have tombstones that I can visit that go back to the late 1600s, and we know exactly who's where what. Before that, it was England and Scotland and Wales from my father's side. Okay,
so what can you, being a New Yorker, what can you tell us about what you believe happened on 9/11?
9/11 was these neocons, these Jewish neocons, had gotten in control of the mechanisms of the deep state. Finally, it was a more consolidated control with George Bush Jr. Prior to that, they didn't have they weren't fully at the helm of like the CIA and all the FBI. That was still actually the CIA was very Christianized, prior to that. But then when 2000 came along, the bankers made their moves. You had Buzz Krongard from one of the oldest investment banks in the United States, one of the first. A.B. Brown and Son, his name, and he was the number 2 at the CIA. They said he was number 3, but if you're the money man from one of the biggest old Jewish money houses in New York, in Maryland, that place was, then you're number 2 or number 1, actually, basically. So this was the Jewish banking dynasties, the old Jewish money. It goes back, to the Middle Ages and before, but more specifically from also from Germany, from around 1740. The Bowers, the Rothschilds. Yep, the name is. Pay no attention to the fact checkers when they tell you, oh no, these loony people say Rothschilds and the old Jewish banking dynasties don't control. Yeah, who pays the check for the fact checkers? So it's these old Jewish money banking cartels, because they're criminal enterprises, and that's who's running this whole show. And so if your leader is not Jewish, he's or she is very definitely 100% has attended a sabbatical, has belongs to a think tank, has received money from a foundation or a trust, or has been promised money, or has seen their predecessor just before them. When they go out of office, they go work for a Jewish banking cartel, or Israeli security, or cybersecurity, or military hardware company, or something like that. But it's all just this top-down Jewish control of our society, and we have to pry the fingers of it off of our children and our grandparents and our families, and free ourselves from this very definite, easy to prove, easy to demonstrate, easy to see, absolutely not a conspiracy, easy to see cartel structure gripping and choking us. Next question.
So how do you see us getting away from this? Obviously we're doing everything we can to expose it. The few of us that aren't afraid to talk about what's really going on, they're talking about, anybody that says anything against, these people, then, they classify you as, certain, racist, or, they classify you as someone who can't talk about.
It's not working anymore. Nobody cares anymore. Nobody's like these people. Listen, the bottom line is, when yes, still in the organs of officialdom, yes, you can lose your job 100%. But actually, in the hearts of the people, hearts and minds of the people, they don't care about those that old tired bat that they beat you over the head, anti-Semite. Oh, they don't care anymore. And I know this because I drove through the United States of America, and as I saw people with masks on and lining up to get their shots, I said, "Oh, don't do that. That's these old Jewish bankers that try to fucking steal every nickel they can from you." And you know what? Maybe 20 years ago, people would shriek and scream and run out of the room shouting. Now they all said, "Yeah, I agree." So I didn't get one single person, not one single person, and this objected to those comments, and that happens here in New York too. Maybe if you tell that to a Jewish person, yeah, they're not going to like it, and I don't like that because I have Jewish friends. I think they're rather nice people, and I don't want to, would never want to expose them to some kind of hurtful comment like that. It's true. The Jews are choking us to death. Not your friend. Not my Jewish friends, nope. But Jewish banking cartels are destroying our societies one by one, every leader by leader, every dollar by dollar. So don't be afraid. Speak out and share it with your immediate circle. You'll find there won't be that much resistance anymore. They're losing that whole war.
Is there anything that we can do to stop these parasites?
Yes. What we could do is we could identify that our leaders are all working for them, and make sure that we do everything we can to treat these people as the scum traitors that they are. So they're traitors for sure. And so people have to start making sure that they articulate both to the leader, right to his face or her face, but to our neighbors, and let everybody know, look, the bottom line is we all know these people are selling us out. Everybody knows they're selling us out. Only the dumbest of the dumb believe that these people really care about locking us down to help us. They know they're working for some bigger agenda. They know that. And they even have names for it, the Great Reset and the Green Jew Deal, all this stuff, right? People are catching on to that stuff. Keep the pressure up. Keep the pressure up. If you live near the offices of these people, make sure you make their lives as miserable as each and every person can. If you see a local corporate leader fully going along with this, firing their employees or being a loudmouth about all this bullshit about masks and vaccine, you make sure that that person hears it. Make sure that maybe who knows? I'm not going to advocate anything that's against the law. Who knows? I wouldn't lose any sleep if a hail of eggs comes crashing down on their door. I wouldn't lose sleep. So is that legal to say that you wouldn't lose sleep, or do you have to now lose sleep legally? Did you lose sleep? No, I didn't. Okay, you're in violation. This is Canada.
Yeah, we're not really sure what's legal or lawful or mandated anymore. It seems like the goalposts, they keep moving, they keep changing, so we just keep firing that information out. And you were mentioning the agenda, and a lot of people think that the agenda is money, but it seems like they print all the money. They have all the money, they have all the gold, so this isn't anything to do with money. No. What do you think that their agenda is? Are we looking more at like the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes. We're also seeing the interleaving of the intersection, as the liberal class likes to pat themselves on the back that they're intellectual sounding. We are seeing the intersection of many agendas. So they always do it like this. With 9/11 was the same thing. They whenever they have when they're going to pull some great cataclysmic event like they did. They always make sure they pile all their Christmas wish list agendas on top of it. So we see the agenda of tracking and tracing and control. These are all Israeli-based technology, all of it which was stolen from the United States. So basically, the Israelis are expert at stealing the technology, the software, the circuitry, the electronics, all that stuff. They steal that from the people who actually develop it, which would be the United States industry and even in Europe and other places. So they steal it, and then they claim that they're the masters of technology. Yeah, I know. Well, all the stuff that tracks and traces human beings, their position through space, and that's all Israeli. That's all Jewish owned. There's very little of that. Oh, they'll say, oh, yes, well, no, DARPA's working on that. Well, DARPA is secretly run, again, by these Jewish bankers. So all they need to do is put people in positions of leadership at these various organizations, and that entire organization becomes an instrument of the old Jewish money. Once these people in Canadian intelligence, American intelligence, CIA, NSA, RCMP, I'm sure, the French intelligence and stuff, if we can get messages to these people and say, look, yes, your boss is getting bribed, paid off, or blackmailed. Yeah, we know that, and that's why he's going along with it. Are you getting all that money? Probably not. You're probably getting 60, 80, 100, 150,000 a year maximum dollars, right? Why are you going along with it? What's the point? So we got to keep an eye on our bosses. Of course, nobody throughout the world likes their bosses anyway, so it's not like that's a new concept. And then basically put the pressure on these individual leaders, I like to call it the middle management of it, and included in that list of middle management would be people like President Joe Biden, the Dan Andrews of Australia, Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, and the leaders of the industrialized world. This is the middle management. Who's the upper management? Old man Rothschilds. He's the god, and the Lazards and Goldman Sachs and all the old banking, all the old Jewish, all that old yummy, luscious, beautiful, crisp Jewish money and Jewish gold. That's what's running the tables right now.
So now, you say that they're kind of the middle management, and then the upper management is, these, bankers, the ones that are controlling all the money. But who runs them? Because, there's we've got someone, from named the Desert Owl, who's, we have a show called The Forbidden History Chronicles, where we're actually running on his channel or our channel right now because we've been blocked from our YouTube for 7 days. We've been blocked from our Facebook for 30 days. We've got, I think, 10 days left. So I had to use an extra channel for us to be able to go live here today, on this. But he's talking about the people that are controlling it are the Brahmins, kind of from India, maybe the ones that are really, really kind of at the top that control the banking money. We talked to Santos Bonacci. He was talking about the Jesuits, the ones, Pepe Orsini and the Fanucci's, those are the one that own the Pentagon. He believes that those are the ones running it. Who do you think is at like the top of this, pyramid of parasites?
Jews. Okay, and let me explain. I hear this all. It's a Jesuits. Jesuits are Jews. They're controlled by the Jews. Freemasons are controlled by the Jews since roughly around the French Revolution. That was a Jewish revolution, right? And I've done whole shows on that, and I've very long time on that issue. So basically, there's been this infiltration of the institutions, the religious institutions in particular of the West, of Christianity in particular, by the Jewish money. Well, it's not that hard to do. You can see how Jewish money has infiltrated every single leader and undermined, has subverted and compromised almost every single leader. They're not doing this because they're following the guidance of Fauci. They're doing it because they're following the guidance of Fauci's master, Gates' master, and everything. You could see little glimmers, a little hint of it when you look at BlackRock and BlackRock and Vanguard. Well, that's just old man Rothschild who rebranded himself and changed his name, took some of those billions of dollars out of the trusts over in the Grand Caymans and Jersey and Guernsey and Bahamas and Bermuda, and took some of that money and put it to work in these index funds called BlackRock and Vanguard. So basically, the money that's being shuffled around used to be this old money that was hidden in vaults and in trusts, and they pulled it out of that mostly. And it was this money that was replenishing the foundations and the think tanks, and that was what gave the marching orders to all the leadership. So back in the olden days, it would have been the Freemasons. They don't need to have a bunch of guys going to a temple worshiping Moloch anymore. They do Moloch still at Bohemian Grove, but they don't need a bunch of geezers in a Masonic hall worshiping old skulls when they have the Institute for Asian Affairs and the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. These are all Jewish think tanks that have thousands of ex-CIA, NSA, U.S. Air Force, Navy officers in there, and current ones too. There's people who are on the National Security Advisory, National Security Advisor's Office that are working for these Jewish defense-oriented think tanks that are nothing more than just instruments of aggression, the agenda, Jewish money power that controls, in the case of the think tanks, the defense budgets, the defense actions, what we do in the United States. It's under this octopus of control. I forgot what your question was, but.
So Blackguard and Vanguard seem to own all the big four pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
We just heard that they're going around and buying up all the properties for overpriced value. I was just listening to someone yesterday saying $75,000 over listing price that they're buying these properties, and people are having a tough time even buying a home now because they can't compete with these things, and it seems like they're buying everything up. Why do you think they're doing that?
Because they are printing up so much free money that they're giving to themselves. They certainly don't want to put it in these inflated zombie corporations called the equities market, the Wall Street, the stocks. That's equities, the stocks market. They don't want to put it there because they know that that's a bubble, right? So they have to put it in real assets. And there's not enough real assets to go around right now. And old man Rothschild's already has, I don't know how many tons of gold, but they already have enough of the gold. They want land because that helps them facilitate this control that is what it is, that it's really undergirding what's going on right now, because it's this control that'll of us, where we live, who we pay our living expenses to. It's that control they need now, not a bunch of gold. No, they need the control. They already have the gold, the control of us, because again, there's so few of these Jewish, not Indian, not Scottish, not Chinese, Jewish bankers. There's so few of these Jewish bankers, right? So let's be clear on that, that unless they buy up all of our land and our homes and have a significant control over us that way, then what are they going to do? They'll have their gold, and they could keep on bribing top officials with that gold and stuff. But still, they're going to control us now at more of a micro level rather than this macro. They have the macro level all nailed down. They run and they own your leaders. They own them. Well, now they have to go into your towns and villages and your home and your municipalities and deal with you on this way. It's more easy to pluck your children out too, by the way.
Do the bankers own China as well, and what's
Yes.
the control that they have over them?
Well, you could look at just the amount of equities that BlackRock and Vanguard own in China, a massive portfolio. And if you look at the history of China, it's a history of U.S. and British and Western involvement in opening those markets up and interweaving them in this, just Western rules-based society. And so China is as dependent on us as we are of them. The United States, well, maybe, I don't think for very long, by the way, but the United States is still something like, the U.S., the dollar, the dollar is about maybe 80% of world reserve currencies. And then you have the ECB, the European currencies, the euro, and other currencies might comprise another 10, 15%. China, in retrospect, has a very small percentage of reserve currencies out there. So, they are essentially, even though they're a productive powerhouse, even though they're a GDP powerhouse, even though now they're turning out to be an emerging military powerhouse, especially now where all we're doing is talking about needles and masks, and they're building hypersonic missiles and getting ready for something big. Maybe not for long. Maybe the Chinese will finally. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't want to be a Jew. It's easier if you're a Jew banker dealing with the West that has had 800 years of subservience to Jew bankers. It's been written about. It's famous where it's been slaves of these Jew bankers, the Jew money power, right? Well, I wouldn't want to be a Jew banker depending on the Chinese to not tear me up, lock me up, and throw me out, because I think that they would. So that's a short answer there. But
what's your thoughts on 666 Fifth Avenue?
Yeah.
Owned by Jared Kushner, and
Yeah.
supposedly they got Lucent technology, this luciferase that they're putting into these injections.
Yeah, usually in New York City, especially, if there's an address like that, we don't have any 13th floors. I'm sure you have that in where you are. And a skyscraper doesn't have a 13th floor out of superstition. But I think when they were especially happy when they saw the possibilities of 666 as an address. So I don't think that the type of people we're dealing with would have been too worried about that. In fact, probably they based their entire methodology specifically on that. So yeah, these people are I don't believe for 1 minute they believe it. They use when you're a billionaire and you have billions and billions of dollars, you don't believe in any of this stuff. That doesn't mean you won't utilize its talismans. That doesn't mean that you won't utilize its rituals for your own benefit or for your own sexual pleasures. Yes, you will, very much so. Do you actually believe it? No. Once you have billions, you don't believe in anything but the money. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in the devil. You just believe in your money and your power. You become drunk with it.
Do you think that Trump and his little crew is against these bankers, or is it just another arm that's, used for psyop distraction?
I go back and forth on that one. The bottom line is that it was the Jew bankers that did everything they could to get rid of them. It was mostly Trump appealing to the conservative end. There's the conservative Jewish money power, and then there's the so-called liberal Jewish money power. But they all lead to the same direction. It's all about Jewish supremacism in the end. And sometimes a power works that way, where they'll play two seemingly opposing forces off of one another, but to achieve this equilibrium that'll ultimately still be whatever they would have achieved with one pole being victorious. And I call it the divided nation paradigm. This is an idea that I've been talking about for 25 years. The divided nation paradigm works like this. The Jew money power doesn't want one or the other side, conservative or liberal or Republican or Democrat, to be that much stronger than the other. They want them roughly, especially since 2000, roughly at parity. And we've seen this. The elections have been like, it's 50.1%. The other is 49.9. We're seeing this now pretty much across the board, both here and in other places, but mostly in the United States. This way, the Jewish money power sits at the junction of this divide, roughly 50-50 split. And with the mechanisms that are under their control, like the media, like the political class that they donate to, and they're able, through these instruments of their power, they're able to then bias or influence the agenda or the votes to go in one direction or the other direction, depending on which agenda best supports their portfolios that month, that year, right? And so right now, I mean, we know this because in the past in the United States, it was the Republican conservatives where all the money went to, or the corporate money and so forth. But now it looks like they're putting it all in the Democratic Party, which pretends like, when it was with the Republican and conservative, it was an anti-sex agenda, and it was a pro-law and order agenda and all that stuff. Okay, the Jew bankers realized, oh, wait a second, no. Actually, we want to destroy their society, so let's have this permissive sexual and pedophilic now. It's going to be legal soon, I'm sure. And then let's make sure we not law and order. You can rob stuff out of a store. It's okay, because we're a good liberal-minded person. No. The Jew bankers, they don't care about whether they're kind to people that do snatch and grabs at the Apple store. They just do things that will weaken and divide us, and that's what it's going to be from now until people wake up to that, and that's what we're doing now, trying to wake people.
Do you think that when any elections, America, Canada, anywhere, do you think that they're actually counted vote for vote, or is this they just use and they put whoever in? It doesn't matter if everybody voted for one way, you got 90%, they'll still say the other person won, in order to put whoever that they want in power, no matter what the people vote for?
I'm afraid I think that's what's going on now, because, when you look at these people are so hated. Everybody hates their leaders. Come on. Nobody's going to make me think that the people in Australia would vote for Dan Andrews and stuff. No way. Or in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. No way. These people are total scumbags. They're hated, right? And the newspaper goes, oh, Dan Andrews looks like he's going to sail to victory, So they're saying this and they're doing this because they know that the intelligence services there have control. But here's of that process. They have a lockdown on it. That's why it's always going to be a mail-in ballots during. That's why it's always going to be a pandemic during voting, because it's mail-in ballots. And so once it's in the mail, oh yes, your vote's in the mail, and it went into a truck. The truck drove for an hour. The ballots came out, but something has changed, I guess. What happened inside that truck? Well, you're not allowed to see. And anybody who says anything happened is a conspiracy theory. You know why? Because we checked the fact checker. And the fact checker said nothing went wrong. Everything went by the book. That's what the fact checkers say. Yeah, no, bad fact checker, wrong. Okay. So no, and the same thing with Jacinda Ardern, and the same thing with Joe Biden. Trump won the election. Okay, I don't like any of these people, but Trump won that last election. So I'm afraid that voting is not going to be not going to be a reliable way to get rid of these people.
So, you were talking about, that they, changed the votes, and you said that, Trump won the election. They've done everything to massacre his name, to make him look like this real bad guy. Is that because he really is the opposition to them, or is this again just more mind games that they're playing to keep everybody confused and give people false hope that there is, this military faction that's going to come and free humanity?
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath. And Trump, he never fired the Jesuit Fauci, never, and Trump could have, and Trump did warp speed, and he's proud of the vaccine, so he's not a good guy, and so I'm urging people to be careful in their allegiance to Trump. Sometimes, especially these days, we always, of course, it's always a least worst kind of a scenario. That's what we all have come to accept as our fate, is that, every time there's an election, it's always just a choice between the least worst, So who knows? I mean, Trump was the least worst last time, and if he turns out to be the least worst this time, the next time, if he runs, then he might get in there, but make no mistake about it, he's the least worst, but he's still the worst. Bad, for sure.
Do you think that there is going to be a next time, because things seem to be accelerating really, really quickly right now, and we may not even have a next election, depending on the way things kind of turn right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, America always has seemed to have muddled through and actually went through the motions of an election, let's say, whether they were legit or not. I think maybe we might go through the motions again, but like I said, I mean, I think they don't really have to risk losing an election. So there's no really reason why they would need to postpone it, especially if it's going to be one of these mail-in elections, which is really hardly an election at all. So there's really no reason. Occam's razor would say it would be easier for them to just stage another fake election and just put whoever they want in there than risk raising some eyebrows by canceling the election. I mean, they will only that won't raise the eyebrows of half of the people that identify as liberals. They'll be like, that's good, because liberals seem to support every fascist measure now. Liberals are pro-war, pro-surveillance, pro this, pro that, and so they'll be pro canceling elections, I'm sure. But there would be too much resistance that I think they will go through the motions of an election.
So with the technology that they have now, the military technology, the drone capability of wiping out whole cities, we've got places like Ukraine fighting back. We just watched a video about them storming the parliament in Ukraine. There's obviously Australia. There's, millions of people that are, taking to the streets in Australia, and, France, different places around the world. America has, 300 million people that are probably armed, maybe 250 to 300 million Americans that are armed. Would the resistance, if people came to the streets, would they be able to stop these military with all the technology that they have right now, if everybody decided to come together to stop these people? Or or is it they're too far advanced now?
Contrary to what most people who talk on this subject do, I'm not one of these people that's going to come out with platitudes. I don't lie to you, and I don't come up with ready-made platitudes. And one of the most popular ready-made platitude coming out of every commentator's mouth is, well, under no circumstance do I support violence. Alex Jones saying that, and all these, the people on the left and the right, they're all saying, I don't support violence. I don't say that. I don't say that. I don't that this revolution has to be a nonviolent. I say that it's not going to be, if there is targeted acts of violence, if there is targeted precision surgical acts on a local level by smart people, there's possibility to gain some traction and to wear them out. Yes, I agree. I think so. But will there be a resistance force with a central command structure? I don't think so, because they could too easily knock out that central command structure. So what you would need to have is people that attrition at the fringes, at the edges, start knocking people out individually and make trouble for them that way. I have to stay within the range of legal speech right now, so that I don't get hauled off. Am I saying that I would lose sleep if targeted groups of very intelligent people got their weapons and started taking direct action against the people who are pulling this obvious, on the surface con job, and if people like Fauci and Gates and Klaus Schwab were to have, I don't know, their heads blown off I would not lose any sleep over that, let's say. And I think that's within the realm of legal speech. In fact, I know it is. It's not incitement. It's not Title 18 incitement to terror in U.S. Code. I memorized most of it these days, so I've been going through U.S. Code. Title 18 is where all the stuff about the criminal acts are, and treasonous acts or acts of insurrection and stuff. So I'm pretty smart, and I have I have one of the most top legal, probably the highest level, most well-known civil rights lawyer in the United States, who I've already called and said, look, if I get picked up one of these days, he said, yeah, well, if you get picked up, then we'll start again. So, but I think that people should start considering precision, surgical, smart acts to free ourselves and to eliminate some of this threat. Yeah, I do support that 100%.
And
they're out to kill our children, so you have to defend your family and your children. I'm sorry.
What's your thoughts on this? The towers that a lot of this lockdown, all of a sudden, all these towers being put up. I was involved with this political party last year, and we did some live videos on the native reserves. They said that they came in the middle of the night and installed these towers, while everybody's sleeping. All of a sudden they came out, and then there's these big giant towers on their land, on the native, Indian, reserve land, that obviously, the chief or whoever agreed and, got paid off or whatever to allow this to come on there. And, what's going on with these towers that they're putting up everywhere?
Let's see if I could get a picture of a solution to that. Hold on. I think this is one solution to the towers. Oops. Okay. Oops. Let me go back in time here. Okay. It's so slow. So this is one solution right there. I don't know if you can see that right there. It's a grinder. That'll cut through. Let me give you a better picture. So you could, that blade's too thick, but you get the thin metal cutting blades cut through the base of the tower very quickly. You could, now I'm just hypothetical. These things exist, I'm saying. And for a cordless one with a change of battery, so in case you're there for more than 5 minutes, but you probably won't be, these blades cut through, 1/8 inch, quarter-inch steel at the base of that tower, maybe. So you have to just make a few cuts. And again, I'm not recommending anybody. I'm saying these tools exist. I've seen video footage where they go, and within a few minutes, they're down. So the bottom line is that, you know, I envision a world where, you know, there could be maybe a tradition among the young ones. You teach them good good cutting techniques, maybe, and then the young ones go out and they have fun with their friends. You know, I would have enjoyed that as a kid. So it can be dealt with. You know, I mean, when it gets so bad, you know, you could get creative and it could become like a tradition. Let's say like a national tradition or a people's tradition, and then it would cost them so much to guard each tower that the costs of it would be insane, as opposed to, you know, they would put a chain link fence, but I mean, you know, that same tool go right through that.
We heard about them taking down some of these towers in the UK when this all happened. I know maybe like a year ago or, you know, 2 years ago, I heard that they were taking some of these towers down. You know, if these towers kind of came down all over everywhere, would that put a big halt to what they're planning for us? Because a lot of it seems to have to do with this, you know, technology, mind control, frequencies. You know, some people believe that people are getting sick because of these frequencies and not, you know, by sneezing on somebody.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, especially with the new information we're getting about all this graphene that's in there and the reactions that graphene has in reaction to these towers, the radiation. So there is definitely, it's like clumsy. It's like the early version of what they hope to be self-assembling complex nanobots. At this point, it's somewhat less, it's less sophisticated. It's more like nanotubes and stuff like graphene that's very thin, like this one scientist said it's like razor blades and stuff, and then they can activate that and you can see the atoms lining up and it forming a matrix structure in there, and these can be going through your bloodstream causing havoc. I think it's more like a way to just cause clots and cause problems. I don't necessarily see that they're sophisticated yet to get in and start attaching nanobots to various neurons on the brain and sending instructions quite yet. I think that's what they're heading to, and we see they're working very hard to get us there. But I think at this time, it's just it can create trouble, can create clotting, can create all kinds of malfunctions in your brain. So you know, I think that the idea of a people's tradition where it was very carefully encouraged, and that people sort of got the approval of their peers, and hey, I saw that one come down. Oh, you did a good job. Oh, Jimmy, I saw you cut that big tower down, and you filmed it, and I saw the film. You're sexy. I like you, Jimmy. You know, girl, you get the girl, right? So the girl, and then the girls try, you know, everybody tries to, you know, it's a way to find love by cutting these fucking dirtbags towers down. So if we could transform it into a movement and there's rewards and society cheers it on, then that's a victory. And that's going to be more and more difficult for them, because, you know, maybe somebody make a movie about a group of kids going around cutting towers down and all the fun they have, you know. So it has to be become like a folklore thing, our defense of our heritage, of our people, of the safety of our children, the safety of our grandfather. This all has to become a folk tradition at this point, because we've lost it and we're losing quickly everything.
Now, we've seen lots of videos of a lot of these athletes and people on camera that have been just grabbing their heart and dropping everywhere. We heard a doctor come out, and I forget which hospital, but he ended up quitting and going in front of the media camera and saying that there's 3 different vials of injection. There's vial number 1 that is just strictly saline solution. Vial number 2, which has got the mRNA, and then vial 3 is some cancer causing, you know, thing. And he came out and said that. So are most of the celebrities and politicians and people that are actually getting these injections getting the number one, and they know that they're safe to get number one, and they're actually getting it? Because sometimes we see these videos where it looks like the cap is still on the needle, and they're pretending in front of the camera that they're getting injected. But so are they actually getting injected by number one that they know or don't know about?
Yeah. I think that's a very imprecise science, because I'll say this, that to keep this particular Jewish supremacist sabotage of our society, this particular operation in place, they can't really rely and trust on every single star and system that star is dealing with to keep the secret. They can't, because there would be someone with conscience. So yes, key individuals, they will attempt to make a mechanism so that they get just the saline. In the case of smart people like Barack Obama, you think he's going to go into a public place and just take the shit that out of the bottle that you and I are getting? Not in a million years. So Barack Obama, and he made his announcement, yes, I'm going to be getting the vaccine, but I'm going to be just doing it in the privacy of my home with my private doctor, and not in front of the camera. Oh, I see. Yeah. So that's easy for a guy like Barack Obama. And he says, I got it. Anthony Fauci too. Anthony Fauci says, yeah, the doctor that gave it to him, he knew for 30 years. And they already, Fauci, I'm sure he put it under the microscope to look to make sure it didn't have any of that graphene in it. Right. But, in the case of some people, you could see, like Eric Clapton, he didn't know, and he got it, and he got fucked up, man. Eric Clapton. You don't hear about him in the news, right? When you type in Eric Clapton's name in the Jewish Google, there's no mention. There's no mention that he's sitting there saying, I got the vaccine and I'm fucked now. One of our rock and roll gods, one of our rock and roll heroes. And so the people who were in his generation don't even know that he's speaking out against the vaccine, because the Jewish controlled media is fucking lying to them and preventing them from finding out. And when you go to search it on Jewish Google, no mention of it. Oh, isn't that convenient? So, and the same thing happened with this fucking scumbag governor of California. He went in and did a mix and match and apparently he didn't have his whole saline solution. So he got fucked for a little while, and then they patched him back together again. I don't know if they gave him a transfusion or what, but they cleaned him up after about 14 days and rolled him out again. So he supposedly had what do you call that, Bell's palsy, after getting his mix and match shot. Fucking asshole. So and you see an image of Arnold Schwarzenegger driving up to a parking lot, one of these public parking lot, whether you sit in your car and they give you the poison. So again, maybe he had it all arranged, and so, but we don't know.
So do you think that they is a way for them to start taking out some of these people that aren't quite fully on board, that might be, a little sketchy, whether or not they're, like say this Newsom, obviously seems like he's been totally on board, or do you think that was just a total accident that, he was supposed to get the one and thought he was getting the one and someone messed up, or maybe someone knew that, he was supposed to get the one and gave him the two or the three just because he's such an asshole?
I was thinking of that too. I was thinking that he probably thought he was going to get the number one, and that there is, maybe this is just a little bit of a fantasy that you and I have too, by the way, because it's, I keep thinking that there would be some people that have integrity that would say, yeah, fuck that guy, and like that. But so that has crossed my mind. And, but honestly, I can't be sure what happened there. So, we could speculate, we could fantasize, but, something happened. But yeah, I like the idea that somebody did it.
So I want to share the screen here, and I want to play something, and then I just want to get your thoughts on it. So can you hear that?
All of this happened in October of 2019. Watch it here for yourself.
Why don't we blow the system up? I mean, obviously we can't just turn off the spigot on the system we have and then say, hey, everyone in the world should get this new vaccine we haven't given to anyone yet. But there must be some way.
You have to prove that this works. And then you've got to go through all of the clinical trials, phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3, and then show that this particular product is going to be good over a period of years. That alone, if it works perfectly, is going to take a decade.
There might be a need or even an urgent call for an entity of excitement out there that's completely disruptive, that's not beholden to bureaucratic strings and processes.
So we really do have a problem of how the world perceives influenza, and it's going to be very difficult to change that unless you do it from within and say, I don't care what your perception is, we're going to address the problem in a disruptive way and in an iterative way, because you do need both.
But it is not too crazy to think that an outbreak of a novel avian virus could occur in China somewhere. We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
It's hard to misinterpret what's being said here. They're essentially outlining the pandemic. Everything we've seen from the last year and a half described right here in this video before it happened.
Yeah, well, they leave a paper trail a mile wide, and they I guess they are really counting on the fact that they do have such a tight grip on all the mechanisms of state and all the mechanisms of media and all the mechanisms of information, so that they don't feel strange at all sitting there, making declarations of exactly what is going to happen the next month, as if it's, So, and they did this with Event 21. They did this in 9/11. They did this, they when one of these groups of bureaucrats comes to your town and says, we're going to do an exercise here. We're going to spray a deadly contagion, run for the hills, because next month it's going to happen. So that is clear evidence of what they did the next month. And then you hear the one guy, Bright is his name, and he's saying, well, we need to supersede like normal governmental structures and governance, because he's basically saying that, the normal operations of like things like laws and governments and voting and stuff, we have to build a structure that supersedes that. And then the next 2 months later, we have this structure. It's called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the CDC and the WHO and the World Economic Forum and any number of these entities that nobody voted for, but are suddenly in control of our future.
Before last winter, Biden mentioned dark winter, and people thought maybe last winter, and then everybody coming up to this winter thinking dark winter. What do you think that is, and has it happened yet?
Well, dark winter was an old thing that I remember from the first round. 9/11 was the first was the trial round for all this, and they had this exercise back then, and I remember it from when I first covered it, dealt with it, and then of course, 20 years go by, and it goes into the faint memory, not so faint actually. I remember it pretty well, but to go relive through that while I'm covering the new stuff is what is the dark winter going to look like? It depends. I believe that many people got saline, didn't, even normal folk. It wasn't just for the rich and famous. They couldn't kill everybody with the kill shot up front. And so I've been saying this for over a year. I started talking about this last June, that the vaccines weren't going to be real. And then nobody in Israel got the poison. They all got saline there. And so when I see people reporting on vaccine injury in Israel, I want to just say, please, you should know better than that how things work. And I think most people do. And I don't know why there's this, people are perpetuating this fiction. That's when you see stories about vaccine injury, that is in Israel. That's they like to call it predictive programming. That's the wrong word. The word is projective ideation is the correct term. So the Israelis are doing what I call, and this is my term, is projective ideation, not predictive programming. It's projective ideation. What is this? Their ideation is just the articulation of an agenda or a set of ideas or a set of concepts that you intend on to the target that you're projecting it onto. You intend them to pick this up as it's their own ideas or concepts or belief structures or whatever. So this projective ideation, this projecting of a belief structure or a belief in a certain event that they're going to then actualize in the real world, and then you're going to immediately go along with it. And that's what they're doing. That's what they have been doing. And so when you see about the vaccine injury stories coming out of Israel, the way you need to interpret that, and the way investigators need to interpret that, is that what they're doing is they know there's not going to be the massive numbers of death of Israeli people. Possibly in the Mizrahi, the dark-skinned Israelis, yes, they would. If there was anybody getting vaccines, it would be Mizrahi. But Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews are not getting it. Ashkenazis, if they got it, it wouldn't affect them because the spike protein doesn't have upregulation. It has 0% upregulation in the epithelial linings of Ashkenazi Jews. So essentially, they're immune from this whole pandemic, basically. So there wouldn't even be a need for them to get a shot. But again, there's 0% chance. Okay, so then why are all these fake stories of vaccine injury, fake protests of vaccine injury, fake doctors talking about all the vaccine injury they're seeing in Israel? What is the purpose of that? Well, the function of that is so that A, fingers don't get pointed towards Israel when everybody else starts dropping dead. B, Israel could say, well, we're dropping dead too. In fact, we were dropping dead before you. No, you were projecting that ideation onto us, right? So that we would not get suspicious or wise, right? I've been urging the intelligence organizations to go snatch bottles of this stuff from these clinics. Apparently in the clinics in Israel where they're giving the shots, the bottles, they have a protocol of guarding these bottles specifically so they can't be snatched. The reason why is because if an intelligence unit went over there from CIA or the FBI or NSA or any global intelligence unit went over to Israel and started snatching covertly bottles out of those clinics and testing them, especially if it was neighborhoods that were Ashkenazi concentrated, you'd find out it was saline solution. They're not getting any of this garbage. This is a genocide for non-Jewish populations. Period. I've never been so certain about something. Never been so uncertain, and I tend to get it right, usually 10 or 20 years before it happens. So no one in Israel is getting the shot. Okay, now, there is going to be a lot of people, and there already are a lot of people in the United States and in Europe and other places, less so in China, because they're not stupid. The Sinovac is not giving the people the same injuries as what's happening in the West, right? The Western industrialized, civilized nations, right? Only they're getting just demolished by these Jews. The Jews don't have the power to poison the Chinese and the Russians like they have the power to poison the Americans and the Europeans. So you have to ask yourself, what the hell would be the point of poisoning Americans and Europeans? That's pretty foolish. We need people. We need a population. Jews don't think so. The Jews talk all the time that they're going to be controlling the world through technology. And since the United States is giving all of our technology to them for free, and what we're not giving them, they're just stealing, the Jews over in Israel, are under the impression that they'll be able to take over our land, take over our houses, take over the property and assets of everything in the West. That's what they're doing. That's the point of Blackstone. Blackstone's buying the suburban homes. So is BlackRock. They're buying the land. They're buying the farmland too. They're buying it all. Okay, so they're getting all the assets. Why? Because they plan on, after we have the first gay president, which might be Buttigieg in 2024, then we're going to have the first Jewish president. And there's not going to be a damn thing we can do, because the cocksuckers down at the CIA and the FBI, their boss works for the Jewish banking cartels, and they always will. At this point, it will be impossible to pry the fingers of these Jew banking cartels off of the intelligence agencies of the West. They are so completely under their grip that in 2024, it's going to be the CIA going to put in their old, their gay CIA agent, Mike Buttigieg, the former CIA, Mike Buttigieg. I mean, Mike is his first name is Mike, or Pete. They're going to put in their gay guy in, because it checks off the Rothschild Jewish social agenda of divide and conquer. And they know that half the American people are going to say, fuck this. They're not going to vote for a guy with his gay lover who has a child, or just give birth to a child or whatever. They're not going to vote for that. They know it. And that's why they put these divisive figures up there. That was the purpose of Clinton. That was the purpose of Trump. They put divisive figures in there, again, to get to this divided nation paradigm, to get us to this 50-50 split, so the Jewish bankers sit at the junction of that divide with their hand on that throttle, and they can move it this way, they can move it that way, depending on which way it gets their rocks off and fills up their portfolio with cash, basically.
So now these Ashkenazis, which are, the ones who are, basically probably, controlling things at the top, they're not really, Jewish in heritage. They just kind of, adopted that. They took it over. They've used the Jewish people. There's lots of people in, Israel that are good people, that are against Zionism. Mm-hmm. They're good Jewish people. I've got Jewish friends that don't support any of this insanity. Mm-hmm. And so, these people they're not really, the problem is not the Jews are they not as expendable in Israel as everybody else is to them, because they're just a little...
No, see, here's the answer to that. If you had a country that has 1 million people, okay, and if you had 1,000 of those people were purple, I think I've told you this before. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
purple.
You said this on the telethon.
Okay. If you had 1,000 purple people, right? If just a percentage of these purple people were the ones that were wreaking havoc on this 1,000 people plus the 1 million people that are in your country, if just 10% of these purple people were wreaking havoc, doing the crimes, and trying to enslave the entire 1 million people, what if those purple people were actually green or blue or yellow or orange on the inside? They just covered themselves in purple. They just called themselves purple, and they just invaded us under the cover of purple. Okay, so if the rest of the purple people, the 90% of the purple people that weren't directly involved in it, if they are not screaming to the top of their lungs about these 10 purple people, or these 100 purple, whatever, did I say the 1,000 purple? Yeah, these 100 purple people that are creating all the trouble. If they are not doing something to clean their own house of these purple people that are not purple people, as everybody likes to say, and that they're actually imposters, they're blue or green or yellow, but they're operating under the cover of purple. Hey, man. And furthermore, if the rest of those purple people that are not doing the crime, if they kind of benefit from it, if they have, privilege bestowed upon them in society because they're purple, and because these purple people, that they may not like their behavior, but the purple people are, though that small group of purple people that are doing all the damage is doing it in their name, and there's some benefit to just, kind of go along with it or not really object too much. Maybe show some disgust, but no real protest. If somebody was out using my name and going around as Harry Vox, killing people, I have a responsibility as Harry Vox to step up and do something about this. Fucking Jews don't do that. And see, that's why the argument that, oh, well, they're not really Jews. First of all, I don't know that. I don't know where in the timeline of Jewish the migration of the Jewish diaspora. I don't know at what point this claim can be made that a schism between the real and the fake Jew was so distinctive. I don't know the answer to that. Yes, I've heard all the stories that they're masquerading as Jews. I don't know why anybody would want to masquerade as Jews, especially knowing the history of Europe. The Jews were not well liked, so I don't see why people would be rushing to masquerade themselves as a Jew. You're standing in Europe and America prior to the 20th century. If you did masquerade as a Jew, wasn't very well regarded amongst the people. So so that argument doesn't feature prominently in my thinking because, again, walks like a duck. If it's acting like it, if it's what else are you going to do? What are you going to say? Then if you feel strong enough about that, then you could say, okay, we got to fight these blue people who are masquerading as purple people. But that's kind of that's a little bit abstruse and convoluted and abstract and for people. No, it's just Jews that are doing this. I don't have any doubts that the people that are in the mainstream media, that are the mechanics of this lie, the mechanics of the publicity and the promotion and the aggressive promotion of this lie that's destroying our families, they're Jews. They're not imposters. They got bar mitzvahs when they were 12, 13, whatever. They wear their hat. They claim they go to synagogue. They're Jews. So if somebody wants to say, well, they're not really Jews. Well, if they're not, then they're the biggest suckers and they're good actors. No, they're Jews that are doing this. This is a Jewish conspiracy to destroy our world and take it over. 100%.
So is this like a big FU to God and creation for them to do all the destruction and keep people fighting against each other?
They don't believe in God. They don't believe in God. No. The billion. Once you get your first $1 billion, the concept of God, you think you're God, right? You think you're better than God. You Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, old man Rothschild. You think they pay fealty to a higher being? No. They're under this delusion that they are themselves the higher beings. So, no. This is, they're laughing at us, though, yes. 100%.
So you don't think that there's some dark entity, like, whatever, like a Moloch or like a Satan, that they're doing these rituals and, sacrificing for this entity?
They do. They participate in those rituals, but the only reason they're doing that is so that when they engage in like when they fetishize in their little perversions, whether it be for sucking a little boy's dick or having sex with an underage girl or something like that. Yes, they go through these rituals so that they can look each other in the eye and say, look, I'm not some kind of piece of shit. I'm just, this is our club and this is what we do. And I'm just, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And this is our little satanic, we don't really believe in Satan, but, it's our little club. And they get to push responsibility for their heinous behavior, their despicable lives onto this little club that the rich participate in, but don't really believe in. And maybe the Hollywood stars that they give to recruit them into this maybe are so stupid that some of them believe it, but even there, I don't think so. No, when you see this layer of, whether it is a layer of spirituality or a layer of satanistic ritual or a layer of Freemasonic ritual, this is just as another layer to shield the person from shame or responsibility of their own act. They blame it on the religion, or they blame their act on that satanistic ritual and say, it's not me raping the child, it's this age-old ritual that we've all been doing. You know, they say we've all done this throughout history, including the Pope.
One thing I'd like to, my thoughts is that, the yang was created to justify shitty behavior. And, I say we're all created in love. It's all supposed to be love. But they've created this dark entity. They've created this dark yang, this opposite, polar opposite, in order for them, like you just said, to justify the shitty things that they do.
Yeah, it's a way to for them, especially because there would be other people in their circle who are aware of what they're doing. Rothschild doesn't go on, or whoever it is, whether it's one of these people that was involved in the Pizzagate thing, where they're moving children around, and these billionaires were engaging in sex with underage children, and that's where we get all the emails about walnut sauce and cheese pizza and hot dogs, all this stuff. And it's a way for them, because they know that there are people who are procuring these people, that they know that there is a network of people who know about what these people are actually doing. And so by having this layer, whether it be a layer of a club or a ritual or a satanistic procedure or ritual, or a Freemasonic sex magic ritual, or whatever this layer is that they use, is what they can then, so that in the eyes of the procurers and the people that are bringing the children to them and so forth, they could say, this is just what we do. It's not me. I'm not a piece of shit. No. But this is how the club, this is the glue that holds the club together. And for people who have a hard time believing that this is how it operates, I assure you, there's enough evidence that this is. All you have to do is look at the emails that they were passing around during this operation that came to be known as Pizzagate, and what the media spent $100 million to tell everybody, oh, that's crazy. Anybody who don't look at the emails, don't read those emails for yourself, because that's just loony conspiracy. And then when you read the emails of Pizzagate, it becomes clear to everybody they're talking about children. They're not talking about cheese pizza hot dogs, licking hot dogs, licking walnuts off of hot dogs. I'm sorry, billionaires don't have these consistent pattern of emails they're sending around about walnut sauce, hot dogs, and cheese pizza, my friend. Nope. So, yeah.
So you don't think that when Obama bought $40,000 in hot dogs, it wasn't actually hot dogs that came to the White House?
It was 60,000, and it was for sexual services rendered. They don't. Obama hasn't. When Obama was the president, you think Obama is making the food orders for guests? I'm sorry. I think he has people that take care of food services for the president. He doesn't. If he's sending out emails about hot dogs, then yeah.
So now, what's your thoughts on the Epstein passing away? Is he still alive?
No, he's dead.
You think that they toasted him?
Of course, because they didn't need him. Plus, it would violate Occam's razor too much. They're going to leave him alive, and then he shows up in some other country, and then the government would have a lot of explaining to do, I think. So no, it's just as easy to get rid of him, especially when there was so much pressure. He probably made the mistake of saying, look, I have tapes somewhere. He did have the tapes, and I know because I spoke to a girl who worked for him, and she had accidentally opened the door in his Manhattan palace there and seen what looked like a bunch of Middle Eastern guys in a room with television monitors monitoring camera positions that had been throughout the house to film the events of the various notable political and industry personnel that were coming to that facility for the purposes of engaging in sex with underage girls. That was all of which was filmed with secret cameras that were hidden. So that's well known, and he probably made the mistake of saying, "Look, if you guys are going to keep me here much longer in detention here at the Manhattan Detention Center, I'm going to have a system where these tapes are going to get out of prominent people," and they just aced them. They axed him. They just the word went out to kill him, and they did with that guy Tartaglia.
Yeah, so what part of what they do to keep their control over these people, these politicians in their high places, is that they put them into these compromising situations, drug them up, drunk them up, then put them with these underagers.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big part of this whole operation in order to get dirt on anybody that they needed dirt on in order to have control.
Yep.
Could they not have just faked his death and gave him a face change, facelift, if he was actually, like someone who was a big part of what they did, and he could still be alive somewhere?
To spare him, I don't look. It's not like I've never been wrong before. So, I mean, there seems to be a lot of people that think that doesn't typically weigh too heavily on my thinking, unless I'm really overlooking something here. I certainly haven't seen as a good, that argument there. I don't know. They killed Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, for similar reasons. He had outlived their usefulness. And since it was an Israeli intelligence operation, that information couldn't get out. If it got out and if it was public during a trial, and he said, look, this is an Israeli Mossad operation of underage sex, and that got out, well, I think that Israel's reputation would be, let's say,
Tarnished.
Somewhat tarnished. Yeah. So, Ghislaine, on the other hand, can be trusted more. And so if anybody, they would sacrifice Epstein, because Epstein didn't come from that line of, I can't say royalty, but that lineage of power. That as Epstein was new to that, whereas Maxwell came from that, and her father was a Mossad agent. And so if they're going to spare anyone, it would be, they would spare Maxwell, and they would sacrifice Epstein. And if there was anyone who would maybe have taken smarter precautions and who would have had a closer relationship with the Mossad to do the instructions for that operation over there, it would probably be Ghislaine Maxwell. And we know this because that guy who was the former chief of the Mossad, I don't know his name, Ari Ben Manash, maybe, that guy. I could be wrong about these names, but I believe that was the guy. And he came out and said so. He said that Epstein would have been the one that would have been sacrificed. This was a former Mossad chief. And that he said that Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein were definitely a Mossad operation. So this is former chief of the Mossad saying that Maxwell and Epstein was definitely a Mossad operation, and that if they sacrificed anybody, it would have been Jeff Epstein, because again, he doesn't have this like lineage going back to Israeli intelligence like Ghislaine Maxwell and her father Robert Maxwell definitely did. We know that. There's been books written about it. Don't pay no attention to the fact checkers, or Wikipedia won't mention it except but to ridicule it. But anybody who looks beyond the Jewish information cesspool called Wikipedia, Google searches, and fact checkers, as long as you get past that cesspool of nonsense and you can read and you know your history, it was a Mossad operation, period, from start to finish, from top to bottom. So they said we make Jeffrey Epstein was the male who had the sex with the girls, right? So they had to get rid of him. There was not much discussion that Ghislaine had participated in it. So as a procuress, which is what she was, the procuress, she would go around and get the kids in there. She has a lot more deniability. She's one step removed from the sexual act, which is what features so prominently in the minds of the middle class Americans. The actual sex act alone between the 59-year-old Epstein and the 17 or 16-year-old girls there doesn't feature very prominently and have that much impact in the minds of those who are like the head of the FBI or at the head of the Mossad or anything. to them, they see that act just as a mechanism by which they can then use as a potent tool to blackmail our political class and our industrial class. Yeah, that's what they see it as, but they don't see it as a fundamental infraction against the girl. Nobody's thinking on that level except like the Joe and Jane six pack. That's what gets their mind going. I don't really care about it. In my mind, the bigger infraction is the fact that act is able to be used as a blackmail act. That's the part that gets to me. Whether the guy had stuck his noodle in whether the old guy stuck the noodle in the 17-year-old girl, I don't really care that much.
So could it be fair to say that maybe she was his handler, and because he was entrusted with all these billions of dollars and all the money that flowed through, they needed someone to watch him closely, and she was painted as his assistant, but could it have been really vice versa, and she was the one kind of running that operation with That's him exactly just being the face figurehead?
Mm-hmm. Well, he was the one who got the boys into the boys club. So when you're in the boys club, like Clinton or whoever was going down there and noodling around with the girls, right? It's better that boys handle that. So when Jeffrey Epstein told Dershowitz, told that girl Virginia Roberts, right, to allow Alan Dershowitz to have sex with her, that wouldn't have been Ghislaine Maxwell that did that. That would have been, well, actually, no, I take that back. Ghislaine Maxwell could have done that just as well. But when Dershowitz was brought into the room with the girl, and when Dershowitz was dealt with and discussed about what room to go in and what girl to be with, that would have been Epstein doing that, because Dershowitz would have been too embarrassed to have Ghislaine Maxwell talk about that old, greasy, slimy Jewish piece of shit having sex with an underage girl. That would have to come from another Jewish man. A Jewish man like Dershowitz, if you call him a man, I call him a fucking slug. But if you call that piece of shit a man, then and a Jewish guy, he's never gonna let Maxwell. He's never gonna have that conversation with Maxwell about, oh yeah, I'd love to have that blonde. Oh my God. That happens with Epstein, and with most of the cases, whether it's going to be Clinton or the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, who was a visitor there all the time, or Bill Gates, who visited his Paris place, his New York place, and supposedly the West Palm Beach place. Okay, he wasn't going down there to play tiddlywinks. Bill Gates was going there to taste the treats that were on offer there, and Bill Gates would not be again. These people would have too much shame, personal shame, in order for them to have this conversation with a female about fucking an underage girl. So that would have had to have been Epstein. So Epstein was the guy who handled the men. Ghislaine handled the girls. And then they decided, let's sacrifice the guy who actually had sex with the girls. It would have been Epstein.
So what do you think is going to happen with this trial, and is anything going to be revealed? That's gonna, help take down these slugs?
No, I think that the time spent in that prison of, if she actually was, again, we have very little evidence of what has transpired in this last year, that we've been waiting for developments in this case. It's most likely that some special teams would have been sent in to ascertain whether or not there is a credible possibility to believe that tapes exist, videotapes exist of the various billionaires and public figures having sex with the underage girls. I believe that in the mind of the deep state and the Israeli intelligence who runs our deep state, and ultimately the Jewish banking cartels that run the deep state. So, if you want to look at a hierarchy of things, it would be, you would have the structure on the level of like the FBI, CIA, and SA and stuff. And then above that, contrary to what people think, but the Mossad actually is the handlers of that, okay? Tangentially in many ways, but it's the money power that sits above all of that. And it would be the trust, the think tanks, and all that. These are these are the ones who write the papers to give the direction to these various agencies. And that the money and the jobs of the heads of the agencies, when they get out of office, they're going to be working for this Jewish money. Okay, so the Jewish money sits at the very top of this. So they will have a great deal of curiosity and a need to know if somehow Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had a system whereby they could have made copies of the tapes that, would have been the Mossad that was making the tapes in the first place. Is there any other video evidence out there of the various, political figures? This is what they've been trying to do cautiously, probably through threats, through intimidation, through deals with Ghislaine. They have to be very careful about this. They have to be able to trust the information they're getting. My feeling about whether or not there are copies made of the original tapes of the people, because we know from several sources that there has been discussion that right from Epstein's mouth after he was arrested of the existence of tapes. Okay, so we already have, I think the reporter was from Great Britain. I don't remember what publication he was from. But in his book about it, he mentions that Epstein was basically saying, look, I have the fucking tapes of everybody. Okay, whether that's real or not, what happened to those tapes? We know that when he died, we saw a strange visitor that go to his mansion and come out with a big bag of what appear to be square-shaped objects, roughly the size of what could be either DVDs or tapes. My guess is it was or hard drives, because it was a square. It was a bag that had things that filled it up roughly in a square topology. So my guess is that that was the media that would have been stored at the New York place. Now, in my view, Epstein would have been smart enough to have copies made. But here's the problem. These billionaires are kind of lazy. And I don't want to give too much information to the intelligence services because I want them to hit Ghislaine Maxwell really hard and get everything they can from her. But my feeling is that billionaires are lazy. They would have. He saw that he got off the hook, and maybe he thought one copy was enough. And it's not like he could ask the favor of anybody to make that copy, because then that would be another person that you'd have to trust. So my feeling is that, I mean, I'm only guessing at this point. I know that there was the discussion of tapes, and my feeling is that maybe between him and Maxwell, these billionaires, certainly Maxwell couldn't have done it because she wouldn't know how to hook up the wires on the back of a simple thing like out goes to in goes to out. That would way beyond an heiress of a fortune. They don't do wires, let's say. Epstein probably could have pulled it off, but I think he was drunk with power and under the delusion that he was going to keep that power, especially because he had got off. Alex Acosta, who would let him off the hook. When in his decades-old procedure, So if they could be sure these tapes don't exist, then they're going to probably see about letting her off. I don't think that they're going to, I don't know. I have a feeling that Ghislaine Maxwell is not going to spend much time in jail. They may give her a token period of time in a luxury facility. Maybe they may give her time off with an ankle bracelet. I think she's gonna not suffer.
Yeah, the arrogance of them at the top, maybe thinking that, they're untouchable. To why should I have to put this, fail safe in behind me when, they're just, my handlers are just going to protect me anyways type of mentality. Maybe got them complacent and maybe not, having to put this just because they are so, parasitically arrogant that
I hate to put that information out because I don't want the intelligence agencies who do watch my show to act on that or to get overly confident that they don't have this out there. So I do want the possibility to exist that this stuff is out there. So that's important.
So what's your thoughts about clones and say if, Maxwell did get 10 years that just some clone went and served it for her while she was, on some island? Because
it takes a few years to grow a clone as big and with as big saggy tits as fucking Maxwell has. So it's going to take you 30, 40 years to do that. So I don't know about that. I'm going to say no. I'm going to nix on again. I go right back to Occam's razor, and clones doesn't fulfill that requirement. Doesn't fit there.
Now, what about clones in general? About
sure.
people thinking that Biden up there is a clone because he's such a bumbling idiot, and that it's not actually him. Sometimes they're different facias. They got sometimes it looks like maybe that somebody's got a mask on that's playing like a Biden. Some people believe that some of these people have been executed and they're just playing out their roles.
This sounds like Q. This sounds like we're going down the Q highway here.
So I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that.
Absolutely not. No clones. Clowns, but not clones. Give it time, though. There'll be clones eventually.
So, what are you working on? What's happening around you? And I know you were talking to some radio station, and then some stuff kind of went down on you, and things kind of went haywire. So they're attacking you.
Well, I have an old system here, unfortunately, and so I try to do I've been having a series of problems, but when you do the kind of research and investigative journalism that I do, you tend to have problems because you're pissing off, every single power structure. That's what I do. I go after power, period, in a way that nobody else does. I don't know. My machine is 12 years old, and I think I'm just starting to have a lot of failures just with the hardware too. So I don't want to make any claims because I didn't. Sometimes I see overt signs. My mailing list is screwed up. It's hard to say, But I'm just repairing and trying to get up and running again. And I'd like to get more modern systems. So I did put out a call for support, and I got some support, not enough to get a new Mac. I regret they're so expensive, but I'm just trying to do that. But I'm also trying to get my RV ready in case I have to leave New York, because we have a very evil situation developing in the north, in New York and California. These people are just absolute evil, straight up evil. So I want to be able to move out of this place that I'm in. But unfortunately, I have a lot of possessions that also keep me in place. So I can't just lose. It's not so easy. And plus I have mechanical issues and I'm out there. It's getting cold out. It's just, I'm busy, let's say.
What's your thoughts on the food shortages? We've been seeing lots of videos about farmers that are getting paid 1.5 times what their crops are worth to burn it all, to either pour Agent Orange all over it or to burn it. And this has come from numerous different places. Is this, again, a psyop to keep people afraid? Mm-hmm. Or is this something that they're actually looking to starve people now?
Yeah, they're looking to starve. They need to keep this crisis going because they've pinned all of their future agendas, all of their hopes, all of their plans are riding on the destruction of the middle class the reset of everything, the restructuring of society, the institution of a new currency, the wiping out of the fiat currencies that are just going to be, that are already worthless stuff. So they're moving very fast and doing all this stuff. What was it? What was the original question again?
What's your thoughts on the food
starving?
Yeah, the food shortages.
It's the same thing with they're obviously they're doing it on purpose. It's not hard for a chemical plant to be putting out fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer plants don't fit the profile of industries that would be affected too much. They're largely pulling this stuff out of the ground. A lot of it's mined. A lot of it's coming from oil. It's petroleum products and stuff. Those systems are up and running, and those systems have it so that there's an asymmetry in the amount of manpower required to deliver massive quantities of the stuff. So the amount of manpower in the factories that produce the fertilizer required in order to produce enough fertilizer is sufficient. What's changed is the ownership of those factories, and it's the new management, BlackRock, State Street, iShares, Vanguard, Jewish. It's the Jewish ownership now of those companies, which are putting messages down the command structure of these organizations, down through the corporate structure, to sabotage production, to shut things down, to make unreasonable. It's easy to shut things down nowadays. Look what Gavin Newsom did in California. That's where the ports for 90% of all products that come from China arrive through the ports of California. And all Gavin Newsom has to do is say, well, it's too dangerous because of COVID. COVID is the excuse for everything. And if there's people not vaccinated, I'm sorry, we can't have ships land. And then 90% of all of the stuff doesn't land. And so it's not hard to destroy a supply chain, and they're doing that. So the same thing with toilet paper. We've known that the biggest way to destabilize people is to make it so that they have to wipe their ass with their fingers because there's no toilet paper. Well, once you have a population that's, rinsing the sink, putting their fingers in the sink and then sinking it off the water again, they know that there is a state of emergency. And they did this in Russia. They're doing it here. The toilet paper factories it's easy to produce enough toilet paper. They have automated factories that produce this stuff. It doesn't, it's this asymmetry of the amount of manpower to man the machines that are producing, I don't know, 1 million metric tons of toilet paper, whatever the commodity is. Right now, the automation is so great that you only need 2 or 3 fucking people to do that. So if there is a supply shortage, it's not because, manpower is so infected. It's affected by the COVID. It hasn't been. So it's a purposeful destruction. And once they take the food supply down, our kind government will say, don't worry, Amazon's going to come around door to door and deliver from the government. But you have to show proof of the vaccine, because we can't risk the life of the driver walking up to your door to deliver you your government issued food. See how this works? And that is what's coming.
What's your thoughts on what the zombie apocalypse is, and is that happening with these walking injected people that are now are finding out that maybe what they've been injected with is something not very nice?
Yeah. It's they will of course be told that it's not the vaccine. So when the zombie apocalypse does kick into full swing, all those zombies will be managed to say, it's the unvaccinated. So again, no matter what they do, they'll always be able to command the narrative, and that's what they're doing. And we could see it coming out of a lot of the people that are getting vaccine damaged. they'll say, well, I got my vaccine. I broke out in hives. I was shaking. I was sick for 2 months. I finally recovered. I can't wait to get my next shot. So, so the zombies, if it's a zombie apocalypse, it's a brainwashed zombie apocalypse. I'll say that. It's the brainwash apocalypse for sure.
Do you think that people now say they have injected a couple people, and if they turn up these frequencies with the metals in their bodies, that they can start controlling them like zombies and like to start going and doing terrible things
Right.
because now they're under this mind control?
No, not at this time. Remember when in my last comment on it, again, right now, this is like the kind of graphene coupled with the 5G radiation. You have to view that as a blunt object, not as a precision object. So a precision methodology would be that the whatever they are putting into the vaccine attaches to the neurons of the brain and forms a neural network that can then receive a structure of no, it's not like that. At this point, what it is like, though, is they can inject you with enough of this liquid metal. Essentially, graphene is a sort of a metal of sorts. It's a carbon structure, and it's not a metal, but it's a carbon like that forms structures that are stronger than metal, more resilient, if you want to use this Jewish banker's terminology. So at this stage in the game, all they could do is put this poison in, activate it with the 5G, and it could do something like cause massive blood clots. It could cause maybe sickness, illness. It's a blunt instrument. It's a blunt tool. It's not yet a precision attack vector. I think that best explains it.
Do you think if they turned it up to a certain point that everybody that's been injected by it will just drop?
Oh, again, my feeling is in this. Remember, we spoke about how a large percentage of the population just got saline, and then the other percentage, every batch is different and stuff. So I don't think that a lot of people got all the nasty stuff yet. That's why they're insisting on a regular booster so that they can eventually get around to everybody. Again, Pfizer doesn't have, they know which batches are poison. I'm sure they have some code. I'm sure they've made a long code for the batches, and then there'll be some key identifiers so that people within Pfizer, which would be this Israeli intelligence, Jewish intelligence, know which batches are which and who's getting what poison. But they're not able to, once these things go to the level of the pharmacy or the retail outlet, whether it be McDonald's at this point, they're giving shots at stuff. They don't have that level of detailed control of it, because certainly every guy who goes around giving the Pfizer shots, be it a worker at a pharmacy or at a McDonald's or at a Target or at a Walmart where they're giving these shots to people, they're not telling these workers the plan, right? So they don't have a precise methodology in place to know who got what. They have random ideas at what states got the poison, more poison in this state than another. So like I said, it's not a precision. It's not a precision operation because they didn't have all their eggs. They didn't have all their things lined up in a row. To be able to have the kind of precision control that they want. They didn't get their ultimate tracking and tracing program. I don't exactly know why. It's not that hard to create tracking and tracing programs, but for some reason they didn't get the full complete. And so there's a lot of holes in their structure of control. And that's why I'm saying we should exploit these holes. For example, there are many states that don't keep track of who got what in terms of when you go in, you get your shot, they give you your certificate. They don't even have a computerized network that keeps track of the certificates that they're handing out that have the CDC logo on it. They're not even, so that tells me that, and such is the case in Florida, for example. Florida doesn't have a computer database that some independent agency, as far as we know. I think they're trying to collect it. I think Pfizer and some of the deep state operatives that work for these Jewish banking cartels, again, because whenever I say a company name or a government agency or an intelligence agency, I'm talking about Jew bankers. Ultimately, it's the Jewish cartels that run the whole show. So they were not able to get in a comprehensive reporting, tracking, and tracing. That's why they tried so hard to get all that tracking, tracing in, so they could build some sort of database of who got what and what lot numbers, so that they can say, okay, well, that town in Westchester County, Jews, that was given the A batch, which didn't have any stuff in it. And so we make sure that when we send it out to the doctors in that Jewish neighborhood, that they just get the saline. But these people down in Trump's Mar-a-Lago in Florida, or some of these evil Florida people, we want to get those death numbers up. So we're going to make sure they get the nasty stuff. That's roughly how it works. It's a very rough operation.
So do you think because of, Trump's popularity and, them not wanting him to come back into power, that they accelerated a lot of these plans, and that's why they didn't have the track and the trace, and they weren't ready because all of it had to be thrown out with this whole thing before they were actually ready to, to do it properly, where they would, tag everybody with the injection?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trump. See, there's a bit of a slight, maybe the premise isn't. There's a slight flaw in that premise. Trump gave us warp speed, so basically he gave us he gave all the millions of dollars to fast track all this stuff. So it's not like Trump didn't play his part in a way. So we have to rephrase the proposition here, because there's some what we're trying to say is that what you're saying is that did this thing going on schedule, or was there a rush? I'm saying there's evidence that this came before its time. Let's say that maybe they planned on getting Hillary for 8 years, because if they got Hillary for the first term, she would have had an 8-year run, not a 4-year run. Okay, because once you got Hillary in, there would be no way to get her out. So if that was the case, that they thought they were going to have Hillary, they would have had more luxury. They would have had more money. They would have had less government oversight in their activities. They would have had more cooperation from the Hillary administration in this whole thing. Trump was, I think, a little late to the game, and he at first was resisting all this stuff. And then they made it clear to him, look, dude, this is the great reset. This is the plan. If you don't go along with it, you're dead, buddy. Or whatever they said, or maybe they found maybe he was on one of Epstein's tapes. I'm predisposed not to think that he was. Trump likes big-titted women. He doesn't like kids. Okay, so they don't have him on any of the Epstein stuff, but maybe they had him on something else, or maybe they were just told, like, if you want to be in the club, if you want to remain in the club, motherfucker, you just go along with this, because we're pinning the entire show on this vaccine bullshit, on this poisoning, on this because the vaccines, it sits at the core. That's the linchpin. That's the fulcrum, that the entire structure of the tracking and tracing, the passports, the lockdowns, the control of the movement of people through time and space. Everything depends on the vaccine, the death numbers, the getting us to submit to the vaccine. Then is the doorway through which all of these other agenda items get walk right through. So Trump was told that you get in the way of the vaccine, and that's the end of you, buddy. And that's the end of all your buildings and all your riches or whatever. So Trump thought it was a small bargain to make. I think he made a mistake. I know he made a mistake, but I think that he probably figured, okay, I'll give these fucking Jew bankers this one thing. I'll give them their fucking vaccine, but I'll still stand for peace and justice, and and I'll still stand for locking down the border. Hey, Trump, locking down the border ain't shit compared to poisoning the 2-year-olds and from two to grandma. There's no comparison. So don't think you're so special because you gave us the border and you didn't even do that. So I think that Trump was a dupe, I think, or just felt vulnerable, or they had threatened him. I think he was resistant to this. And we know he was, or so he claimed. But there was a lot of things that he claimed he was and turned out to not be. So it's hard to say. I'm not sure how much it's worth, because we'll just be back to the same old question, which is the least worst again. And if they, the Biden administration if the Democratic Party puts up, just another completely, somebody who's just not that you cannot consider for it, we might have to go with Trump again. And listen, compared to the the year after Trump left, well, Trump was like a knight in shining armor. Those were the good times compared to what we have now, which is a very scary situation on our hands. So.
And it doesn't matter how anybody feels. The facts are people are getting injured and killed by these injections, and he fast-tracked it. Means a big responsibility lies on his head for the deaths and injuries of millions of people. It doesn't matter what kind of plan is in place. He's directly responsible. And, that's firm. Those are facts. Those aren't, on what you feel, who you support, whether you think light and dark. Facts are he is responsible. What's your thoughts on crypto? And people are saying crypto is the way to get away from the banking, and crypto is the way. But I've just kind of delved in the last maybe 6 months into it. What I've put in is doubled and tripled, and things have gone better. But some even 10 times the amount. But as I've been researching, when someone, this whale just sold $1 million, so it seems like everybody knows who has what, who's selling what, and now it's like your total finances in the crypto space are now an open source for everybody, where that's more control than it is, people are saying, it's away from the system, but it just seems to me there's something fishy how everybody knows everything.
Yeah. I'm pretty open about it. I mean, these new currency systems, or these now crypto systems, these monetary systems that we get, they're only as good as the confidence that people have in them, and none more so than cryptocurrency. None more so than a fiat currency. Cryptocurrency actually requires less confidence, because there's more bulletproof guarantees against certain abuses that are not present with the printing press version of fantasies. But the problem with the crypto is as follows, and this is what I've been making clear to a lot of broadcasts, that if the ruling power structure, right, the Jewish banking cartels, who control and own and operate the central banking system on the planet Earth, not just the Federal Reserve, but the European Central Bank, the Deutsche Bank, the England's Bank of England, the Bank of Japan. These are all part of the Rothschild, Lazard, Goldman Sachs network of old Jewish families, dynasties. This is this dynastic control of our monetary systems. If and when, and not if, actually when they introduce their cryptocurrencies, right? We can see how easy it was for these Jewish cartels, through the media, through the health systems authorities, through the intelligence agencies, all of whom they own, and they control. We saw how easy it was for them to convince half of the population of the earth that it's a good idea to poison your 2-year-old children. Okay? How good idea it is. So if somebody can explain to me how it is, what is their belief structure, what is in their mind, and convince me that it's impossible for that power structure that could get you to poison your own child to just as easily say, Bitcoin is now against the law. Anybody using it is going to get a 20-year sentence, and the cops are going to come kick your door down because, like you said, Jesse, they know where you are, right? So for me, unless there's a blockchain cryptocurrency-based anonymous currency, such as Monero or some of these other anonymous coins, or unless the problem of anonymity on the Bitcoin blockchain gets solved so that when the cops come to your door to beat the shit out of you and your grandmother because you've had some Bitcoin that you're using, right? Unless you have an answer as to how to remain anonymous on this network, and when they say, well, it's against the law, you're going to go to jail for 20 years, and you say, fuck you, I'm going to use it still. Unless you have the answer as to how you're going to deal with that, then the answer is when the Jewish Rothschilds Federal Reserve and the Jewish Rothschilds ECB, European Central Bank, right, and the Bank of International Settlements, Rothschild operation, when they decide to get their cryptocurrency going, they could just say it's outlawed. And then they could send a 15-year-old kid in with an AR-15 into a kindergarten to shoot it up and kill all the kiddies. And then the Jew media says, see what happens when you use Bitcoin? All the children got killed. Shame on you. It's now against the law. Simple. But our Federal Reserve cryptocurrency is safe, you see, because we know every single cent you spent your money on. So shame on you. You tried to buy some marijuana and you don't have your papers in order. Oh, you wait a second. A hooker? Forget that. Right? So this is it.
Well,
a gun, you're not going to get it. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, thank you very much. This was amazing. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, you don't hold any punches. You tell it like it is and aren't afraid to speak your mind. And I respect that about you. Wish more people weren't afraid to say what they really felt instead of just saying what people want to hear. And that's gone on for far too long, and people are starting to talk, and you are definitely leading the way. So thanks for all your service to humanity. Keep going. I'm putting a protection bubble of safety around you because we need more people like you to stop what this insane agenda is. So thanks again. Hopefully you'll come back at another time, and maybe we'll have some better news for the people than we have right now. But really appreciate your time, everybody. Harry Vox.
All right, good talking to you, Jesse. Thanks a lot.
And just one last thing, if you wanted to share where people can get in touch with you, how they can get a hold of you.
You could go to my BitChute account. That's where I update most. I have a website, Vox News, one word, VOXNEWS.com, not to be confused with Vox.com, Vox News, one word, .com. And you can sign up for my mailing list. I don't ask anything, I think just put the email, you put it in there, and then you get notifications of my show. But honestly, truth be told, I'm so busy that mostly I just update the BitChute channel by doing live shows. Doing not live shows, but shows. I put them on the BitChute, and that BitChute is Harry Vox, a BitChute. It's a BitChute, and it's unsafe space. 2 words, unsafe space. And if you're going to search it on a search engine, it would probably be easier to go BitChute space unsafe space Harry space Vox, and then if those 5 words, you'll get to me. And there's some really killer stuff there, really good stuff there. So that's one of the best channels you can go to. It's kind of an esoteric channel for people in the know. A lot of intelligence agents hang out there too, so they all watch it, and all the alternative journalists watch it too. You can't miss it. So it's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, God bless you, brother, and we'll chat with you again.
Take care, Jesse.
Okay, bye for now.